With the trailer for the Eternals now out, we are left with many questions about this new band of heroes. Who are they, where did they come from, and where have they been all this time? Fear not, fellow watchers, for today we will be covering everything you need to know about the Eternals, their origins, powers, relationships, and potential role in the future of the Marvel Universe. The Eternals are a race of enhanced individuals created by the Celestials, some of the oldest beings in the universe. We have actually seen a few of the Celestials in the MCU already. We saw Esson the Searcher in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and bore witness to him using the Power Stone to annihilate an entire planet, as well as Ego the Living Planet in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and the disembodied head of the unnamed Celestial now home to nowhere. These Celestials came to Earth before the dawn of humanity in order to experiment on the primitive lifeforms on the planet known as proto-humans. The experiments would forever alter the course of human evolution. Three groups emerged from these experiments, the first of which was humanity, and these experiments were directly responsible for the humans' uncanny ability to gain superpowers in the Marvel Universe. Everything from the mutants to Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four owe their powers to the experiments of the Celestials. The second group that was created was a race meant to protect themselves as well as the experiments that were being conducted on Earth. These near-perfect specimens were created via the use of cosmic rays, which granted them incredible strength, speed, and stamina, as well as the ability to cast illusions and teleport, as well as the ability to harness this cosmic energy into concentrated beams of energy that they could shoot from their hands and eyes. These Guardians would later come to be known as the Eternals. Eternals also have a unique ability to maintain perfect control of their physiology. They are able to mentally control each of their body functions down to a molecular level, which allows for powerful healing factors and virtual immortality. The Eternals were meant to be nearly perfect, but where there are successful experiments, there are also detrimental failures. The final group of experiments by the Celestials led to a race of beings with drastic physical deformities and hideous mutations. These deformed, imperfect variants were soon cast out of the Eternal Society, left to grow resentful of their perfect cousins. These are the Deviants. The Deviants have had a long history as the sworn enemy of the Eternals, driven by anger, resentment, jealousy, and hatred. While the Deviants have often remained isolated, we've seen Celestials in the MCU before. Does that mean we've seen the Deviants too? The answer is maybe. In the comics, the Mad Titan himself, Thanos, is a deviant born on the experimental Eternal colony of Titan. Though he was born to eternal parents, he was born with the Deviant Syndrome, resulting in his unique purple appearance and enhanced physical characteristics, such as enhanced strength, stamina, and endurance. So, where were the Eternals when a possible deviant set out on his quest to eliminate half of the universe? While many fans have shown their disdain for the Eternals not showing up and helping out, that remains to be seen in the upcoming Eternals movie slated for release on November 5th. Now, who are each of the Eternals that we see in the trailer? First, we have Makari, played by Lauren Ridloff. In the comics, Makari was an avid member of the Eternals Technologist Guild, and spent much of his time on Earth being worshipped as a deity across multiple different cultures and religions. He taught humans how to read under the guise of the Egyptian god of literature, magic, and wisdom, Thoth. Later, he traveled across ancient Greece and Rome, often being confused for Hermes and later Mercury, the god of travelers and merchants. His abilities include enhanced strength, speed, and stamina, which is commonplace for the Eternals, but he also possesses multiple psionic abilities. These abilities include the ability to telepathically create illusions and manipulate the structure and shape of certain objects to a degree. But he has an affinity for using these abilities to pilot various vehicles and machines that he creates and races. Next is Sprite, who is cursed forever to appear as an 11-year-old child, unable to grow. Where many of the Eternals have an affinity for remaining stoic and focused on work, Sprite was much more carefree and oftentimes a bit of a trickster. Sprite has spent much time toying with humanity, inspiring the creation of William Shakespeare's Puck and J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan. Sprite also has the ability to create illusions and is oftentimes cited as one of the Eternals' most powerful illusion casters. With centuries of practice under Sprite's belt, Sprite's illusions are unique for the fact that they can incorporate all 5 senses, making them virtually indistinguishable from the real world. These illusions are so incredibly lifelike that those trapped inside oftentimes cannot tell the real world from the false one. Fastos is one of the more melancholy Eternals, believing life to be meaningless and often struggling to find purpose in his existence. He devoted himself to the crafting of weapons and tools for his fellow Eternals, commonly being confused in ancient Greece for Hephaestus, the god of blacksmiths and forges. Even though he himself didn't like to fight, he was always present to ensure his brethren were sufficiently armed. Fastos has even been known to sit out wars and conflicts directly involving the Eternals due to his apathy toward violence. As well as being one of the most resilient Eternals, he is also one of the strongest, able to lift upwards of 25 tons compared to the average Eternal, who can only lift around 15. He is nearly impervious to pain, and on the rare occasion he is injured, his healing abilities are able to regenerate missing tissue and heal virtually any wound. While Fastos does have minor psionic abilities, he chooses to use them not for illusion casting, but for levitation purposes, not only for himself, but for others. He does this by psionically manipulating the gravitational forces between atoms, allowing himself or others to become virtually weightless and achieve the ability of flight. Druig is one of the craftiest and often most unpredictable Eternals. He is one of the most powerful telepaths of the Eternals and has a particular affinity for the manipulation of fear and nightmares. Druig uses his telepathic abilities to read the minds of others, locate their darkest fears, and use those fears to manipulate them into doing his bidding. The threats of these fears are so great that his victims rarely are able to resist his will, using these waking nightmares to manipulate the person's actions. This skill also extends into overriding control of a person's body and limited brainwashing capabilities, making him one of the most difficult Eternals to combat. On top of this, he also has a history of direct conflict with the rest of the Eternals, primarily his cousin Icarus, and manipulating a conflict to better serve his own agenda. This means that rarely can he be trusted, as he's known to play multiple sides of a conflict. Gilgamesh is among the strongest of the Eternals in the physical sense, and the only Eternal to physically rival the power of Icarus. At the beginning of his life, he wasn't aware of his heritage, nor his status as an Eternal. He spent his life traveling to distant lands on Earth, conquering tyrants, overthrowing kingdoms, and battling the most dangerous earthbound beasts on his quest for eternal life. Human legends commonly confuse him for Hercules or Samson, given his sheer strength and force of will. He is a known friend of Anais, Achilles, and King David, roommate of Hercules for a time, as well as a warrior of the Roman Empire. His thirst for adventure is seemingly unquenchable, leading him into direct affiliation and allyship with the Avengers for a time in the comics. Ajax is another Eternal with known conflict among the group in the comics. A skilled warrior in his own right, Ajax fought in the Trojan War as well as fought side by side with Thor against Tromadon. Ajax is the only Eternal who has the ability to communicate directly with the Celestials, which often promotes him to a leadership position among the Eternals, similar to the role that Salma Hayek's Ajax will fill in the upcoming movie. Kingo in the comics is Japanese and spent his life in feudal Japan as a samurai. However, in the modern era is a famous movie star. In the movie, however, he is going to be played by Kumali Nanjiani, seemingly deviating from the comic origin as a samurai, although he still is a movie star. Though Kingo does possess the standard powers of the rest of the Eternals, he often chooses to fight using the ways of the samurai, neglecting to use his powers and instead using his samurai training, as he is a master swordsman. Athena, commonly confused with Athena of the Greek pantheon, was an Eternal with close personal connections to the actual Greek pantheon. Formerly named Azura, she and Zeus found it beneficial to begin negotiations to create a long-term diplomatic relationship between the Greek gods and the Eternals. Athena would go on to be a direct liaison between the groups and the Earth, acting as a diplomat and peacekeeper, and later a hero for hire. The Black Knight, played by Game of Thrones star Kit Harington, seems to be a bit of an outlier as in the comics. He isn't an Eternal, but rather a human by the name of Dane Whitman. Whitman inherited his uncle Nathan Garrett's castle and would later discover that his uncle once held the mantle of the villainous Black Knight. Wielding the ebony blade, a sword carved from the meteor of Merlin, Whitman would set out to infiltrate the Masters of Evil under the guise of carrying his uncle's legacy. In actuality, however, his true intent was to dismantle the group from the inside out. His battle would be far from over, as the ebony blade would slowly strip Whitman of his sanity, causing him to eventually encounter a fake Savage Still and beating him nearly to death, losing an eye in the process. Finally, back to the Eternals, we have Icarus and Cersei. Kevin Feige was mentioned that the closest character to the protagonist in the Eternals is Cersei, who is believed to be the audience's focal point for the duration of the film. Cersei is a gifted sorceress capable of incredible matter manipulation and, to a lesser yet still impressive degree, fashion design. She is known to have feelings for the Black Knight in the comics, but the movie seems to hint at a strong central relationship between her and Richard Madden's Icarus. Icarus is commonly cited as the second most powerful Eternal on Earth, his physical strength only matched by Gilgamesh and his durability only matched by Zurus. As a Prime Eternal, however, the extent of his abilities are not known, though we will soon find out when the Eternals release this November. So my fellow watchers, what do you think of this new group of heroes? Where do you think they were during the conflict with Thanos, and are you excited to see them make their MCU debut? As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and then like this video and subscribe to the Marvelous Wave to assemble and join our team, and have a great day.